So that's pretty much what my job is here.
Right.
So it's all in all, but not everything. In Asian families, I cannot say that in front of the camera.
We all are aware.
I went about and I gave my resignation the very same day.
Okay.
Currently, a reasonable size, mid-sized company with a head count of 200 people. So, well, with the c2o is a challenge.
Right.
Being a business at 24/7.
Hello and welcome to the third episode of C2O Unplugged. We have a man here today that makes things happen 24/7, the CEO of C2o. How are you doing today, Saqib?
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
And doing great.
Awesome. So let's kick things off. Tell us about yourself, a little bit of your background.
Okay, so I started with c2o in 2017. So I was among the first ones recruited. So since then, it's been at different positions. And for the past 4 years, 2021, at the start, soon after COVID, I took over as the Chief Operating Officer.
Right.
And since then, I've been in this position. And so my job role, exactly what it is that I have to ensure that all the departments are on the same page.
Right.
To ensure that the objectives of the company, the annual targets of the company, the vision of the company is delivered while everybody is working together. So removing any obstacles, as you would imagine. And apart from that, I have a secondary role, which is being a project manager.
Okay.
So any new project that the company decides to overtake, of course, which is part of our long-term goals, which is 3 years or 5 years or 10 years.
Right.
So it's me who has to go about and doing all the planning, getting all the resources in place, ensuring that it's delivered within a specific times. So that's pretty much what my job is here.
Right.
So it's all in all, but not everything.
Awesome. Okay, so leaning into your personal life, could you tell us a bit about your childhood, any hobbies that you still enjoy today?
I was a nightmare for my parents. As a child, I was always bring trouble to the home. So if I remember correctly, I think I was 5. So next to our house, there is a ditch.
Okay.
So my dad has come from office and he's parked his car up, which is of course a government given car. And he's goes in for a lunch, and it's me and my childhood friend out from the school doing nothing. So the car was parked next to the house, so the road next to the house is a dead end. So after that there is a main road and there's no safety. So it's a ditch straight from there, about 30 feet. So not knowing how the cars work, so we decided to release the handbrake.
Yikes.
And the car started rolling towards the ditch. And we've been shouting and yelling, and of course nobody could hear us, there was nobody about. And it felt like it was coming to an end that day. But there's no, of course, superheroes in real life, but this man who just turned up out of nowhere. And he ran and he managed to pull the brakes just as it was heading into the ditch.
Right. Wow.
So that has stayed with me.
Did your dad ever find out?
Yes.
Right.
Because the gentleman gave me a couple of slaps.
Okay.
And then, of course, he went inside the house to inform my dad what's happened.
Right.
And what happens in Asian families, I cannot say that in front of the camera.
We all are aware.
So, yeah, it actually was an experience where you find out about when your life is coming towards a designated destination.
Right.
So it has stayed with me. I was expecting a different result, but of course, probably would not have been here today to be with you. So that has stayed with me for a very long time. Then I had a couple of nightmares for that as well.
Right.
So it was a memorable experience, but of course, I think since then, it didn't stop me from creating further troubles.
Right.
But it was a memorable experience. But overall, as a hobbies, you could say, it's more to do with DIY. So any toy that would come to the house will have to be taken apart after a day or so. and then
to make something else.
to make something else.
Right.
So since then, it was the hobby that do a DIY.
You still
So
enjoy
I
those?
still enjoy fixing things in the house. Of course, you don't always fix everything. So some of them
Right.
do break
Right.
and not fixable anymore. But I haven't given up on that. So
Wow. Right.
I've even managed to break neighbors' houses, stuff. Because of course, if you're doing something, they would say, "Oh, this is broken in my house. Could you fix that for me?" If it's fixable or not, that's a different
That's
story.
another story, right?
So still, DIY is my hobby, and still go about doing that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, could you tell us about how your educational background shaped your career path?
Okay, so till as this mostly happens in our country, where as a growing up kid, you don't know exactly what you want out of the life,
Right.
and it was the same situation with me. And till I was 18, I don't think there was a very good direction to the life. But then after that, I decided to be in the IT field, and eventually, so my background is basically I'm a computer scientist.
Okay.
So the modules we had in our undergraduate were more to do with not just the tech side. It was more to do with the situational, there's multiple, as you can call it. They were wanted to cover every aspect
Right.
of a business, even if it's a tech business or whichever business it is, to go about and knowing how things work out in different ways. So it was to do with the professional issues that you would come across, which would of course be like the likes of change management, and if you were trying to implement a change, how things would go wrong and how you could be better prepared
Right.
to go about it. So it was a very well thought out plan, and it was more to do with coursework rather than just going up for exams. So it was a very, I think it played a very big role. But then at the master's level as well, it was more to do with the same, where you would have to study business as part of
Right.
the studies.
That must have helped you, like learning how to solve problems.
Yeah, of course, because what they would do is they will give you a situational question. So it was not like a textbook question.
Okay.
So more to do with a situational question.
Right.
You are in a certain situation. These are the problems you have to solve, and eventually you would have to give a situational answer. It cannot be a correct answer, or it can
Right.
be a wrong answer. So it's what's the best approach you think you would take. So I think over the years, doing more coursework than the exams for the last 6 years of my education, I think it shaped in a way, and it was more to do with every single aspect that a business could go through, which is starting from a planning phase, if you're starting up a business from a scratch, and then eventually towards the operational side. So I think it was overall, it equipped me well.
Right.
But of course, it's just a theoretical side of it. Doing a coursework and with a few university classmates, it's a different story, and stepping into the real world has its own challenges.
Yeah.
But it's always a challenge to start and difficult. But of course, the longer you stick to what you have learned and you try and implement that,
Right.
I think it works out in the end. Yeah.
So shifting gears to C2o, you told us a bit about how you started here. Could you tell us like what got you into the company first, and any major milestones that you've faced here?
So I returned. So I was in the UK for my higher education, which of course is undergraduate and masters. So the area I stayed in with my uncle in the UK was called Villanol.
Okay.
So this 247, which is our sister company, it was originating from Villanol, and I landed, and I was just scrolling through the internet, seeing what Pakistan job market is like. So came through it and applied for it, though it wasn't something that I was expecting.
Right.
But in the end, yeah, that's how it was meant to be. So I was called in for an interview, and eventually I am where I am.
Right.
Yeah.
More than seven years now.
Yes, 7 years, and I think 2 weeks now,
Wow.
to be precise. So it was in 17 when I started, and never thought I would stick around this long, but did apply elsewhere. Sorry, I had to say it on the camera.
Awesome.
So, but eventually, I was given the opportunity to grow, and here I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm interested now, speaking about your particular position here. What do you think people often get wrong about your position?
I think over the years, doing interviews, sitting in different department positions, I've came to realize that in Pakistan it's more to do with running command and control centers. And the micromanagement is to the level where everyone reports to pretty much the same single person.
Right.
And the people are not allowed to make the decisions with the freedom. So I think that's probably one of the challenges that a lot of the people who actually head the department, who as we call it, them leadership team. So a HOD, I think, is not given the freedom to make the decisions as they would have. I think that's one of the key one of the key reasons that you could either go up or you could go down. So I think that's something that I've learned while being here.
Right.
It's very tempting to be the single
person deciding everything.
Yeah, deciding everything, not taking everyone else on board. But I think that's counterproductive when we are looking for growth.
Right.
So that's I think that's pretty much there would be to it. So if you give people the freedom and the resources they are looking for, you get the results which you are looking for at the end as well.
So talking about challenges, how do you navigate through them working in a senior leadership team, and what would you say was the biggest challenge when you first took on this position?
So it was soon after COVID, if I remember correctly. Our MD at the time has resigned, and soon after COVID, it was challenged to bring people back to work. And the lockdown was easing up, and things were starting to get back to normal. I wasn't expecting to be in this position, so I was manager of quality assurance team at the time.
Okay.
So I was asked to lead. It was a surprise.
So you
for
just
me.
had to step up.
I had to step up, and it was probably not a pleasant surprise, as you can say. But it started, and I had a second thought. I went about and I gave my resignation the very same day.
Okay.
Thinking I probably would not be a right fit. So I had doubts about myself. But I had a good conversation, a very long conversation with the CEO, and decided to give it a shot, provided that I've been given certain time to make things work. And it took time. I was given the confidence, I was given the opportunity, I was given the time. But the biggest challenge was I was the junior in the whole of the leadership team.
Right.
So all the HODs were senior, and I was a junior manager when I took over the position. So, and I was the youngest one as well at the time. So the challenge was people who have been here in the decision-making positions, leading them and bringing them to the same page and having them to trust me with the decisions that I make.
Right.
So I think it was quite challenging at the time. It took time,
right?
But I think that was the biggest challenge I had to come through. But of course, at the same time, we C2O didn't have any process, any hierarchy. So it was decided on that day that who would be reporting to who, and eventually a change started happening.
Right.
It's still ongoing in certain areas, but yeah, I would think that day in 2021 was a game changing for me at least, or I don't know, for probably for C2O as well. So that was the biggest challenge I think I've came across, but I think I've managed well. And I managed to march people along.
Yeah, you have.
And we're hoping that it goes further.
It will, inshallah. Right. So under your leadership here in C2O, what particular initiative you think you have aimed at transforming C2O in recent time? So
C2O was spread out in 3 different buildings. That was the biggest challenge. There was small rooms, so there would be like 10 people sitting in one room, and then of course you will have 10 in the other. and the building was spread out in. It wasn't a properly planned building, so you would have to get to one specific room. You will have to go through 3 others. So it was a challenge, and it was a challenge not just to plan it out, but to get the permission from the board. So it was a challenge. It took me about 10 months to convince, and then to start seeing that into the reality. And we started planning. So planning is always the key. So you know what the end product or what the goal of whatever you are going to start working on would it look like. Secondly, I think it was c2o basically started as a customer contact center for our sister company in the UK. So it was never planned out to be this big and to be providing services to other companies. So eventually it had to, when we decided that it is going to grow, giving people the environment which is welcoming, friendly, and it's comfortable, it was a big challenge. I think it took some time to get things down, and we eventually started working on different services. The marketing of c2o was not the actual name. We had to ditch the name as well in between to make it more generic. So that was a very big challenge to undo everything of 3 years and then start doing again with a new name, new branding, and a new environment for the staff. So we targeted it to be a certain amount of time, and by the time we will start actually getting the results. And to get those results, we had to make significant changes to the way c2o is, the processes and everything. So in the end, we are offering 6 services at the moment, apart from just being a simple contact center. So I think it took us, the leadership team at the time, quite some time to get our heads around it, and planning something from the scratch is always would be a difficult decision, and things go wrong, things go right.
They do,
But having said that, you have to stick around and be true to your goal. I think we did that, and alhamdulillah, we are currently a reasonable size, mid-size company with a head count of 200 people. So I think we have done well, and we have achieved what we set out. But there are still challenges that we have to go through and make further improvements in a lot of ways.
Wow, awesome. So moving to your personal life now, could you tell us about your personal and future aspirations?
I think I've worked on pretty much every single position that could exist in this office, starting from very low and then working as a data scientist, and then establishing different departments, and now leading the company. I think the only position I could see is my CEO moving out, thinking about his retirement, and of course being in the board. There is always room for personal growth and professional growth. So the idea is that I'm good at what I do, study and look at what other people who have done it better than me. Of course, there are people who are doing way better than me. So it will be always to learn from other people and see where I could personally and professionally could help c2o in different areas. So it doesn't stop. So the idea is that to be on the board eventually, to be the ultimate decision. So that's I think the aim is at the moment. Whether you get there, you don't get there, that's a different story. So yeah.
So how do you balance your personal and work life?
Well, with the c2o it's a challenge. Being a business at 24/7, but of course, as I said at the start, that you have to have the people that you trust in the teams, and it's always generating further leaders. So you delegate the work and elevate yourself. So you have to have the teams, you have to have the middle management. So it was one of the challenges when I started as the chief operating. we didn't have any significant, or you can say substantial enough or established
People,
enough
right.
people in the middle management. So most of the departments were run by HODs, and there would be a minimum or no middle management. So it was a challenge that we established, especially for the likes of operations and the
Right.
team. So it was very important to have that. So over the past 1 year or so, 14 months, I think it's been, we started implementation of having a full-fledged operations team, which is looking after the business in a way where even if the HOD is not present,
Right.
the department could run the whole business. So I think that was the idea, and we've spent a lot of time and resources in developing our team.
Right.
So I think that's always the key. So you have enough people, or you have the right people in the right places, which ensure that they do their work while you're not looking.
Right.
So that's, I think, that's the key for having a personal life and a professional life, a balance. So you could sleep and you could eat at
Right.
the same time, and so that's been the key. With the help of many other departments, the likes of HR, we have managed to get ourselves a team that is capable of running the business.
Right.
It's kind of an autopilot,
Yeah.
if I put that way. So that's the key for being able to have a personal and professional life balanced.
Right.
Yeah.
So who has been your biggest influence in your life, and how do you think they impacted your goals or values?
As I mentioned at the start, that till 18 I didn't have much of a clue what I was heading towards.
Right.
So my uncle, I stayed with him in the UK for about 6 years. So he would visit Pakistan here and there, and he was the main person behind my success, and a person guiding on what route to take. And he would talk about how the professionally things should be dealt with, and which way I should be going forwards with. So he was the main reason. I'm very grateful to him. I probably would not be anywhere if it was not him holding my hand. So he told me whatever I have. Most of my brought up was with him, because as a young teenager, it's always a challenge to get your head around. So I wouldn't have a significant age gap either. So I think it's only about 10 years. It was more like friends.
Right.
So it's easier to take advice.
Yeah, coming from someone
who's not that old. But if you look at your father or someone who's elder, it's always it's a bit of a challenge. I don't know how to put it in easier words, but having someone who could actually guide you in the challenges that you are facing, I think that is a blessing to have, and I'm grateful to my uncle. He has played a significant role in shaping up my future, or my career, or my education, and my personal life in certain aspects as well.
Right.
So we still, till this date, whenever I get stuck or something I can't get my head around, he's a go-to person for me.
Wow.
So, and he has achieved something that I don't think many people can possibly can. So it's always a role model. So always someone I look up to when I go for when I'm stuck.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if you feel comfortable, could you share any personal instance or challenge you faced, and how you overcame it?
Okay, personally, I returned from the UK in 2013. I decided I had enough. So the graduation was enough.
Right.
Not knowing what it's like out there in the market when you're trying to get a job. And I think I stayed unemployed for a year. Many people telling you that, trying to take you down basically. So the negativity creep ups to you. And it's a challenge that you have to get yourself out from. I think I've seen some low days, but it was that time, that 1 year. It was very challenging for me. But over the 4 years of my undergrad, because I was working to support myself in that time, I think I've made some savings. So I think the challenge is when you have some money in your pocket, it drags you down,
Right.
and you sometimes you feel like this is not gonna run out, and you would be able to do what you're doing, which is basically doing nothing.
Right.
So it was a challenge. That 1 year was very difficult for me, and in the end I decided to go ahead with the masters, and we'll take things from there. I think it was one of the best decisions I probably would have made in my life. So I returned back to the UK and I did my masters.
Right.
And since then it's been a bumpy ride, but not so much where you get stuck.
Right.
So I think that was one of the difficult decisions I probably would have to make, of sitting idle for some time, not doing something considerable, and then pulling yourself together,
Right.
and eventually getting to the position where I am.
Wow. So before wrapping up, one last question. Would you like to leave us with any insight, any advice for anyone interested in taking in or on a leadership role? Any advice you'd have for people? As
I said, it's more to do with not running a command and control center. You have people working for you or working with you. You have to trust the people, and you have to give them the time they need and give them the resources they need. So being a person who's mostly responsible for, like myself, on the overall operation side of the business, it's very tempting to keep everything to yourself, make all the decisions to yourself. But I think with C2O it's a bit different. I haven't came across, because we have recruited people over many years, and the question we ask them is how the leadership team is evolved in certain aspects or certain decision making of an organization, and it's sad to hear the answers mostly that people are not given the platform to speak. Over at C2O, the whole leadership team, and not just the leadership team, all the departments, they're on further. It's mandatory to have at least one meeting a week, which is dictated by our operating system. So we meet every week to talk about the issues which you probably would not have time in the week. So I think that is always the key, that you give your people time.
The freedom to just
the freedom to make the decisions, the freedom to do things they want to do with their departments. So as long as you delegate and you trust your people, I think that's the only way forward for growth. And we started doing this, and the results we see is quite encouraging. It's easier to say. For some people could be power freak. And it's a challenge to let things go. Eventually, that's the only way forward if you are looking for growth. If you don't have the processes, the people, you don't empower them, it's always a downhill from there. Because things do break. Because humans, they have to always make way. So if the departments are stable enough and the people working with you are good enough, and you give them enough authority, and I think it goes a long way.
Lastly, any final thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Okay, there is a writer called Robert Frost. There is a poem written by him. Of course, I would not go through the whole poem. But the poem is called Walk in the Woods. The crux of that poem is, Robert Frost says, I was taking a walk in the woods, and I came across a fork. So fork is basically like two roads. So he said I took the path which was less used. So it's always the key that you take not the populist or the easiest decision, easiest path, and the decision that you take for that which path you're going to take is something that will have lasting consequences or lasting results. So I think I would leave it with Robert Frost. To be, I think people could read up on Robert Frost. Is something that is. I would leave it with this thought.
Well, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.